The applause was still echoing when his presentation screen went blank. Not from tech issues, but from me. I was standing in the back of the conference hall, badge clipped sideways, coat still on, and I was the one who pulled the plug from the event app with admin override. 10 minutes into his keynote, he'd just described my cutting-edge design, my unique algorithms, my user behavior data, as if he'd conceived it during a casual chat. He hadn't seen me walk in, but the keynote title, Revolutionizing Digital Interactions with Emotive AI, that was mine, down to the phrasing. I had proof. Just the night before, I'd sat in a hotel bathroom, a laptop balanced on the edge of a vanity, Wi-Fi tethered to my phone, submitting the provisional patent at 2:41 a.m. Central Standard Time. Time-stamped, digitally signed, logged, filed in my name, and now here I was, watching my boss's boss, a man named Richard Sterling, who once told me I lacked executive presence, prance around in a designer suit like some tech guru, presenting stolen work to a room full of venture capitalists and government officials. He had no idea what was coming, because while he slept in a $600 penthouse suite, I'd sent the filed documentation to the conference board, the ethics committee, and a quietly curious reporter from Tech Insights who'd been sniffing around for stories involving corporate plagiarism in AI development. And that wasn't even the real twist, because what Richard Sterling didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that the version I'd filed wasn't just the patent. It was the one that exposed what else he'd taken, not just from me, but from someone who wasn't alive to fight him anymore. 6 months ago, I was scrubbing dust off a broken hard drive. That's not a metaphor. It had fallen from Michael's backpack when the paramedics lifted him. It was a tragic accident on Highway 101, metal on metal. Of the 2 passengers, only one survived, and she didn't walk away with much. A fractured collarbone, a twisted ankle, and a memory that faltered like a skipping record when she tried to recall the hour before impact. Michael and I had been colleagues, yes, but more than that, co-conspirators in a field that didn't always welcome our vision. We weren't trying to make a better chatbot. We were trying to weave true, adaptive, emotional understanding into machine learning, something that could de-escalate online conflicts, interpret subtle cues, respond to critical situations, not with generic responses, but with deeply empathetic, contextual language, a tool for helping people. And we were close, closer than anyone realized until he died. Richard Sterling showed up 3 days later, looking concerned, asking if Michael had shared any sensitive research with me that needed to be secured. I didn't answer, not because I was being strategic, but because I couldn't trust my expression not to betray the truth behind my eyes. What Richard didn't know was that Michael had shared it. That hard drive, the one I pocketed when no one was watching, it wasn't just backup files. It was a complete proposal, co-authored pre-review, with detailed correspondence between Michael and an ethics liaison. It also contained a hidden version of the same patent Richard had been pursuing since last fall, proof the model was functional. Only one person was listed as lead architect: me. And here's where it starts to change. I never submitted that version, not back then. I sat on it, nursing grief like a physical wound, watching as Richard slowly co-opted team meetings, praised generic presentations, pitched his vision. When I pushed back, I was told I was stressed. When I corrected him in front of executives, I received a warning for unprofessional tone. Then came the restructuring. My role was shifted to research support, in other words, demoted without the benefits. It wasn't just theft, it was erasure. But the hard drive gave me something else, something Richard never found. A set of messages dated weeks before the crash. Michael had begun documenting something odd. Anomalies in data routing, executable flags being altered, duplicate queries traced back to Richard's credentials. He was trying to warn me. And suddenly, I wasn't just protecting my work. I was holding the last weapon of a deceased friend. The patent, it wasn't just revenge. It was the catalyst, and I had just ignited it. The first sign it was working came 17 minutes after I cut his mic. A low hum rippled through the crowd, the way murmurs begin before a significant announcement. Richard froze mid-slide, his eyes flicking toward the tech booth. He did that thing all high-level executives do when they lose control. Smiled harder, said it was a brief interruption, that he'd continue with the key takeaways. He said everything except why a senior VP's voice had just been silenced from a multi-million-dollar AV setup mid-presentation. And then, like clockwork, came the whisper. 3 rows ahead of me, a woman in a gray pantsuit leaned toward her colleague and said, not quietly enough, "Did you hear the patent was just filed? Different author, same title." The colleague blinked. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "Got the alert. Name's not Sterling." I saw it hit him like a silent shockwave. His chest puffed on instinct, but his eyes, they cracked. You can tell when a man built on borrowed credit feels the scaffolding collapse. His gaze darted to the crowd, scanning for whoever pulled the trigger. He still didn't see me, not yet. But his assistant, Tiffany, looking slick and terrified, was already on her phone, frantically texting. She slipped out the side door, probably hunting damage control. It wouldn't help, because by now, I'd sent it everywhere. The patent confirmation, the draft with my data, screenshots from our internal messaging platform where I outlined the exact function he just described, dated, authenticated. Oh, and I hadn't even played the voicemail yet, the one Michael left me 3 days before he died. Shaky, rushed, like he was being watched. "Richard's trying to hide it. He knows it's yours. If anything happens to me, don't let him publish. File it. I signed it over to you. It's all there on the drive." I hadn't listened to it until last night. I wasn't ready. Hearing his voice again cracked something I thought I'd buried under work, caffeine, and thinly disguised hatred. But that message, it changed the rules. This wasn't just intellectual theft. It was legacy laundering. He wasn't just stealing from me. He was stripping the credit from someone who no longer had the voice to fight him. Here's the part that turned the tide. I hadn't sent the voicemail to anyone yet, but I had uploaded it and scheduled its release in 23 minutes. Every inbox in this conference, including Richard's own, was about to receive an email titled, "This is the voice you tried to erase." And that's when the lights flickered, literally. The room went dark for half a second. Backup generators kicked in. The screen behind him glitched, and I smiled because I knew what slide was about to load next. It wasn't his. It was mine. He tried to pretend he was still in control. "Looks like we've had a little technical fun," he chuckled, eyes scanning the crowd for sympathy he hadn't earned. "Bear with us, folks. We'll be back to the core architecture slide in just a moment." Except the screen didn't return to his slide. It came back with mine, full title centered, no company branding, bold black text on a white background. Emotionally Adaptive Language Processing in Neural Context Networks, Lead Architect Dr. Luna Vance. My name, front and center. I heard the breath suck through his teeth. I felt the silence that followed, thick, sharp, like someone had sliced the air open and left it bleeding. He stood frozen. For once, his mouth had no script, just the sound of a man trying to control a room he no longer owned. And the audience weren't confused anymore, because 10 rows back, the Tech Insights journalist I tipped off, Clara Mendoza, stood up, pressed record on her phone, and asked, loud enough to carry, "Mr. Sterling, can you explain why this presentation appears to be authored by someone else who filed a patent on the same technology less than 24 hours ago?" I swear I saw his jaw twitch. The cameras were on him now. Not his team, not his slides, him. He opened his mouth. Before a single word could slither out, the room speakers clicked back to life with a soft chime. Then Michael's voice filled the hall. "This is Michael Miller. If you're hearing this, something's happened. I'm leaving this for Luna." Richard Sterling's been intercepting my reports, changing attribution. I found flags in our source control. If I disappear, if this gets buried, she's the one who built it. She deserves the credit. Not me, not him. Luna. Dead silence. No one moved. Even the tech team sat slack-jawed, like their fingers forgot what buttons were. And Richard, he turned around slowly, like maybe if he looked long enough at the back of the room, he could will the ghost of this mistake into submission. That's when he saw me, coat off, badge forward, calm, standing beside a conference organizer who was already reading the email I sent with the attached filing records and metadata logs. I met his eyes and tilted my head. Not smug, not angry, just accurate. He started toward me, but he didn't get more than 3 steps, because that's when the ethics committee chair blocked his path with a clipboard and 4 little words that finally cracked his shell. "Mr. Sterling, come with us." The room erupted, not loud, not chaotic, just that low, hungry buzz of 100 minds snapping into place like dominoes, learning they'd been arranged for someone else's fall. And in the center of it all, he stood alone, choked by a silence of his own making. But I wasn't done, because I hadn't even opened the hard drive's second folder yet, the one labeled Insurance. I opened it on the plane ride home. My hand hovered over the file, my stomach a knot of instincts and dread. Insurance could have meant anything. Knowing Michael, it wouldn't be vague. He didn't do vague, he did surgical precision down to the timestamp. And when the file expanded, what I saw wasn't a data dump. It was a kill shot. Encrypted emails, attachments, a full PDF chain titled Proprietary Conflicts Re. Sterling Innovations, 2021-2023. Turns out, Richard wasn't just stealing my work. He was laundering multiple projects, core R&D initiatives quietly shelved because they were not viable or too early for market, and then quietly resurrected under his name for private pitches with funding, VC funding. One of the folders held a red-lined contract, unsigned, but annotated in his handwriting. He'd been shopping around a licensing agreement for the exact emotional processing suite 2 months before my model was demo-ready, and worse, used Michael's original whitepaper as the proof of concept. No wonder he tried to scrub Michael's name from everything. No wonder he came to me pretending to be the concerned mentor. He wasn't just betting on climbing over us. He'd already drawn the map, and we were the foundation. But the final file, the one that made my mouth go dry, was a video. Blurry security lobby footage, low res but clear enough, time-stamped 5 days before Michael's crash. Richard standing in the building's basement parking garage with someone I didn't recognize at first. Bald, rough build, wearing janitorial overalls but carrying a duffel bag far too clean. They shook hands. The man handed him something, an envelope. Richard glanced inside, counted, nodded, left. It wasn't conclusive, not enough for police, not enough to prove intent or link to a crash, but enough for everything else. Enough to poison any corporate due diligence. Enough to sink every pending deal. Enough to burn his name black across any background check for the next decade. But I didn't release it. Not yet. Because I wanted him to know I had it. To sit with that dread. To understand that I hadn't just taken back my work. I'd taken control of his timeline. So I sent a message, not an email, a couriered envelope, old school, monogrammed. Inside, one still frame from the video, 1 page from the licensing document, a sticky note in Michael's handwriting I'd kept in my drawer since last year. They never see it coming when you smile first. 2 hours later, I got the call, not from Richard, but from legal. He'd stepped down, personal reasons, effective immediately. No press release, no thank you memo, just gone. But it was what came after that chilled me, because the woman from ethics, the one who escorted him out, she emailed me one line. "You should know, he wasn't working alone." Suddenly, I realized the ghost I'd buried wasn't done whispering yet. I didn't sleep that night, not because of guilt. No, I'd already made peace with that part. When someone tries to burn your name out of history and replace it with theirs, you don't feel guilty lighting the match under their reputation. No, I didn't sleep because I couldn't shake the last sentence in that email. He wasn't working alone. I kept replaying the conference, the internal meetings, weird little moments that didn't register at the time. Like how the data team lead, David, used to accidentally forget to CC me on release memos, or how Tiffany, his assistant, had a personal messaging thread with our product leads without me, despite me being the primary developer on the framework. I dug deeper. I pulled every internal project archive I still had access to. I mirrored folder names, cross-referenced commit logs. I compared them to the version history Michael had hidden on that hard drive. And there it was, a commit tag from 6 months ago. Not mine, not Michael's, logged under a username I didn't recognize. Prather, Infra Operations Lead, Nicole Prather. I remembered her. Clean suits, polite to the point of eerie, always in the background during big pitches. She never once spoke to me directly about my project, always filtered through Richard. I thought she was just another figure in a glass office, writing out stock options. But now she was the one who pushed the commit that rerouted our logging system. The same reroute that allowed Richard to clone my neural context dataset and run it through a test environment I never authorized. She had been the surgical glove to his theft, the hidden hand that made sure I never saw the blood until it had dried. And as I kept going, I found more. Shared cloud storage folders with archived slide decks, a billing code entry under Consulting Research Summary, External Partners, a 7-page exploratory briefing that outlined my algorithm, watermarked with a third-party VC firm's name. They were shopping it together. And the VC? Miller Bridge Capital. That name dropped in my stomach like a stone through glass, because Miller Bridge was run by Michael's uncle. I'd only met him twice. I remembered the coldness in his eyes when he shook my hand at Michael's memorial. I thought it was grief. Now I knew better. They weren't just burying Michael's memory, they were selling it. This wasn't corporate theft, it was intellectual organ harvesting. And Nicole, she was still at the company, still in her glass box, probably sipping sparkling water and deleting old messages. But I wasn't going to expose her in an email. I wanted to see her face when she realized I wasn't just the girl from engineering she forgot to copy. I was the one who held every receipt, every commit log, every time-stamped subpoena breadcrumb, and I had just scheduled a one-on-one meeting with her. Her calendar request said, "Review of ethical audit fallout." Mine said, "Confession or collapse." She walked into the conference room like nothing was wrong, tailored navy blazer, hair pinned back in that sharp little bun that probably hadn't moved since 2016, not a hint of panic. She even smiled, the kind of tight, practiced smile people give when they think they're still the smartest person in the room. I didn't offer her a seat. She sat anyway, crossed her legs, looked up at me like she was about to deliver a lecture on bandwidth allocation. "I assume this is about the patent fallout," she said, her tone level, flipping open her leather-bound notebook. "Let me say up front, the company is committed to resolving internal confusion with as little damage to reputation as possible." I slid the hard drive across the table. She blinked just once. "Funny," I said, "because this drive contains every log of that confusion, including yours. Your commit ID, your VPN access to my file archive, and the cloud storage link to the pitch deck you sent Miller Bridge Capital." Nicole didn't move, but her lips parted slightly, so I kept going. "I also found your NDA violation in the metadata you forgot to scrub. The document signature. Rookie mistake." She closed the notebook slowly. "You've clearly done your homework." I leaned in. "I buried a man last year who didn't deserve to be erased. I've had time." She tapped a nail against the hard drive, light and precise. "You don't want to do this." Wrong thing to say. "Don't I?" I laughed once, cold. You think this is optional? Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope, the one I'd prepped for this moment. Inside, a printed transcript of the messages where she coordinated with Richard on who to credit, when to submit it, and how to write me out of my own architecture. I slid that across too. This copy, yours, I said. The other 6, with legal, HR, the ethics committee, the board, the VC firm you fed my work to, a journalist currently writing a profile on the company's post-Richard shakeup. For the first time, her hand trembled. Then, I hit the final blow. I also blind copied Miller Bridges' lead partner on our last correspondence. You know what he sent back? I pulled out my phone, tapped open the message. Please inform Ms. Vance that Ms. Prather acted independently. She was not authorized to submit materials under our review process. We've since cut contact. It shook her, not because she'd been cut loose, but because she realized how far behind she already was. I could have offered you equity, she whispered, hollow now. You stole a man's legacy and tried to sell mine on clearance, I snapped. There's no equity in ashes. She stood, but not with confidence. She didn't take the hard drive, didn't take the envelope. She just walked out, legs stiff, spine cracked. I let her go because the real punishment wasn't coming from me, and it was coming from the silence waiting outside that room. The looks, the questions, the internal audit she didn't even know started 2 days ago. Her fall would be slow, thorough, and without the dignity of denial. And me? I had one last stop to make. One person I hadn't visited since all this began. Michael's mother. I owed her a story and a signature. She lived in a pale yellow house with wind chimes that didn't match. One said Cape Cod, one had dolphins and was just a bent coat hanger with flattened bottle caps strung together. They clinked like a drunk symphony when the breeze caught them, delicate and off-key, just like Michael would have liked. She opened the door before I knocked. I saw the news, she said, voice low but steady. No smile, no anger, just that same quiet watchfulness Michael used to have when people spoke a little too loud in meetings. You really did it. I nodded, my throat tighter than I expected. May I come in? She led me to the kitchen. Tea was already steeping, chamomile, 1 mug waiting. She poured me a cup like she'd done it 100 times for someone else who wasn't coming anymore. I didn't know how to start, so I placed the manila envelope on the table and slid it to her. She hesitated, then she opened it. Inside, a notarized form, the final page of the patent application. I'd amended the document the morning after Nicole's fall. Michael's name now appeared second, officially credited as co-author and primary research contributor. The lawyer told me I didn't have to, that the original filing was airtight, but I didn't do it for legality. I did it for truth. He told me once, I said quietly, that he never cared about the credit. That if we helped even one person talk to a machine and feel heard, that was enough. She smiled for the first time, small, sad. He said that to his father once, after we buried his dog. Said, it's okay if no one remembers who built it, as long as someone uses it to feel less alone. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she reached into a drawer and pulled out a small black notebook. He kept this in his coat. Every draft, every late-night scribble. I didn't read it. I didn't think I had the right. I opened it. There, between pages of scrolled formulas and midnight thoughts, was one line circled 3 times. Protect Luna. She's the one who sees the whole thing. I closed the book and swallowed whatever tried to rise in my chest. I saw it, I whispered, and I made sure they did too. She nodded. Then we're done, she said, not with grief, not with pain, but with silence. And when I left that house, I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean because they tried to rewrite the story, and I made sure the ending was mine. This story teaches us that integrity and truth will always prevail, even against the most cunning deceptions. When faced with injustice, it is crucial to find your voice and stand firm, not just for yourself, but for those whose voices have been silenced. Luna's journey reminds us that while the path to justice can be challenging and fraught with personal loss, the pursuit of what is right is a powerful force. It shows that even in the face of betrayal and corporate greed, one person with unwavering determination and clear evidence can dismantle a web of deceit. The positive message is to never underestimate your own strength and resilience. Always fight for what you believe in. Honor those who helped you along the way. And remember that true credit belongs where it is earned, not where it is stolen. Your legacy is built on truth and courage, and that is something no one can ever erase.